Pompeii gets the movies, the tourists, the ash-cast bodies frozen mid-scream. Its neighbor got something stranger, a library that survived by turning into charcoal. Herculaneum sat closer to Vesuvius than Pompeii did. Hotter surges hit it, fast, gas-driven, over 400 degrees, burying the town deeper, stranger. Inside one villa's library, that heat did something almost impossible. It cooked 1,800 papyrus scrolls into brittle black lumps without burning them to ash. Today, 2,000 years later, people are reading those scrolls again, without unrolling them. This is how a burned library came back from the dead. Every relic on my shelf earns its place with a story. This one earns it with an apology. It looks like garbage, and it isn't. Scarab does not trust it. Scarab has never trusted anything that used to be on fire. Scarab is, on this point, completely correct to worry. Here's the shelf item's name, the only library to survive from the ancient world. 1,800 scrolls, flash carbonized into unreadable charcoal. Nobody planned this rescue. In 1750, a well-digger's shovel hit marble with no business being there. Within months, engineer Carl Weber was tunneling straight into a buried Roman villa. Weber's crews worked by smoky torchlight, hacking through rock-hard volcanic tuff while breathing pockets of trapped gas. This was not archaeology. This was mining, blind. Between 1752 and 1754, that same tunnel produced a stranger haul than any statue. Room after room of blackened cylinders nobody could identify at all. They looked exactly like firewood. Charred, cylindrical, worthless-looking firewood. So that is precisely what the excavators decided this priceless ancient library obviously was. I want to be clear, they had the surviving library from antiquity in their hands, underground, planned to burn it for warmth. Some scrolls were burned before anyone stopped to look twice. We do not know how many. That number is gone, spent as kindling in 1752. The rescue came from an unlikely source, Bernardo Tanucci, the king's minister, who took one look at the discard pile and told him to wait. Study them first, he said. Burn them later if needed. It's a low bar for heroism, the only reason this library exists at all. By 1754, Weber's tunnels had pulled over 1,000 scroll fragments from one room of it. Sources range from 1,100 to 1,800. So, a library survives a volcano by becoming charcoal, survives its own rescuers by minutes, and still can't get a straight head count. That's the beginning. This wasn't a modest house. The Villa of the Papyri ran over 200 meters of frontage, packed with roughly 90 bronze and marble statues. It's the largest single collection of classical sculpture ever recovered, and archaeologists still believe most of the actual villa remains buried and unexcavated today. So confident was one collector in this villa's grandeur that he built a full-size replica in Malibu, because the real one is sealed underground. The library was likely one philosopher's working set, Philodemus, an Epicurean, patronized by a wealthy Roman. 44 of his own works turned up inside. We don't actually know what Philodemus looked like. No confirmed portrait survives. Everything you're seeing is an educated, honestly labeled guess, not a photograph. Having a library is one thing. Opening one fused into solid carbon is another. For 2.5 centuries, every attempt made things worse. In 1754, Vatican curator Antonio Piaggio built a machine, silk threads and membrane backing peeling a scroll open a fraction of a centimeter hourly. It took him roughly 4 years to unroll a single scroll. At that rate, reading the library would have taken something like 7,000 years. Later attempts got faster and much more destructive, scrolls sliced lengthwise to peel out readable layers, which usually just shredded them into unreadable, readable-ish confetti. By the mid-1900s, only about 585 scrolls had ever been fully unrolled, and many of those were badly damaged in the process. In 1819, the Prince Regent sent chemist Humphrey Davy to Naples to try gas and chlorine instead of blades. Davy was confident. It wasn't enough. He partially unrolled 23 more scrolls, then quit, complaining in writing that Naples museum staff had gone from unhelpful to, in his words, obstructive. A world-famous chemist got bested not by carbonized papyrus, but by Italian museum bureaucracy. Some obstacles outlast 2,000 years of volcanic ash. Here's the deeper problem nobody could out-clever. The ink was carbon-based. Sitting on paper, the eruption had turned into carbon. Same color, same material, invisible. So here's where we are, 250 years after the tunnels. A readable library no known tool can safely open. Then, someone got clever. The first crack came in 2015. Physicist Vito Mocella aimed a synchrotron, particle accelerator, at a still-rolled scroll, hunting for more than shape. The ink, it turned out, held faint traces of metal. Under phase contrast X-ray imaging, that tiny density difference was just barely enough to show through. For the first time in 2,000 years, someone read Greek letters inside a scroll never touched, let alone opened. The barrier had a crack. One crack wasn't a method. In March 2023, Brent Seals joined Nat Friedman and Daniel Gross to try something unusual: open the problem to everyone. The Vesuvius Challenge, a public prize, real CT scans of unopened scrolls, released to anyone willing to teach a computer to see ink through carbon. By October, 21-year-old Nebraska student Luke Ferreter had trained a model on the scroll's crackle pattern and found something no one else had: a full word, Greek. Porphyras, meaning purple, the first word read inside a sealed Herculaneum scroll in roughly 2,000 years by an undergraduate. Within days, Berlin PhD student Youssef Nader found the identical word independently, with cleaner results, earning second place in the same race. 2,000 years of scholarship, cracked by a SpaceX intern and a biorobotics student racing each other on Discord. History has no dignity. Ferreter, Nader, and Swiss student Julian Schilliger joined forces. In February 2024, their models read over 2,000 characters, 5% of one scroll. $700,000 split 3 ways for the grand prize. Not bad for reading a lump of charcoal 18th century workers once used as firewood. And the content? Philodemus, on music, food, and whether more pleasures actually make life more pleasurable. 2,000 years later, still arguing about snacks. The method kept improving. In May 2025, researchers recovered something rarer than a passage, a title, On Vices, by Philodemus, from a scroll never opened. Here's the part that should worry, or thrill, you. Roughly 1,600 of the 1,800 recovered scrolls are functionally unread by anyone at all. And that's just what's already dug up. Archaeologists suspect a second library, maybe an entire Latin collection, still sealed in an unexcavated lower floor. About 2,800 square meters of the site remain unexcavated. Too costly, too risky, buried under a modern town that's very much still lived in. So, somewhere under a pizzeria in Herculaneum, there may be a second library. I have never wanted to excavate a parking lot badly. 2 honest arguments, still unsettled. First, even the eruption's date is disputed. The textbook August 24th versus growing evidence for an autumn eruption instead. Autumn produce and heating braziers found at Pompeii point to October. A commemorative coin and preserved summer fish sauce point back to August. Historians disagree. Second, nobody can fully prove Philodemus personally curated this library, or that his patron Piso definitely owned this villa. Likely, widely repeated, not certain. We're telling you this because a channel that gives the tidy version is lying to you by omission. The messy parts are the real ones. Every ancient text we have survived by being copied, generation after generation, by hand. These scrolls are different, original, untouched, unedited since Vesuvius sealed them. That means whole works we know only as fragments, or not at all, might be a few scans from being read for the first time. The Vesuvius Challenge's next goal isn't one scroll at a time. It's all 300 remaining scrolls in Naples, scanned and read at scale. So the shelf gets a new resident. The only library to survive the ancient world, now being read inside out, one scan at a time. Scarab, for the record, still refuses to get within a wing's length of it. Scarab has decided that fire, even ancient, well-behaved fire, remains fire. Somewhere under an Italian town, a second library maybe still waits. Somewhere in Naples, 300 more scrolls wait for their turn in the scanner. We'll be back when one of them says something worth interrupting your dinner for. Given the track record, that's not really a question of if, it's a matter of when. Until then, Mind the charcoal, don't feed anything to the fireplace before you've checked what it used to be.